Begin by chanting Om, taking a deep inhalation. Do an opening chant. Om Karam Bindu Samyuktam Nityam Dhyayanti Yoginaha Kammadam Mokshadam Shaive Om Karaya Namo Namaha. Om, united with the source, on which the yogis ever dwell, grants eternal bliss and realization. Salutations to the vibration of Om. Beloved family, it is a great honor for me to share with you what I gathered in my 20 years of living in an ashram with Swami Satchidananda, and in the 26 years that I have studied at the Spirit of Aloha Temple through the experience of nature learning. And I'm honored to share with you in a nutshell what has taken me 45 years to gather. And I would say you're in for a treat. Like, the hardest part of your life experience is over, and what is going forward will be much easier. And you'll see that as you progress on the spiritual path, that life becomes easier and easier and more fun. And it's really a progression from the experience of being an ego to the experience of having unit of consciousness, or experiencing your oneness with the unit of consciousness. So if you want an overview of the spiritual path, to know what is the spiritual path about, the spiritual path is a journey that we all started billions of years ago, and I'll remind you of the conversation we had. We were sitting around just like this. It wasn't that much different. We were sitting around and we were saying, hey man, this is really cool that we've been in this bliss mode for so long. Like, it's just wonderful. Like, we're bubbling with the bliss of 12 values that we cherish. And these 12 values, they captivate us forever. And we're just like bubbling in that bliss of just the 12 principal values that we love and that we cannot get enough of. And as we were bubbling in that, somehow this idea came up, hey man, like, we've been doing this for a long time. This has been going on for, who knows, like billions of years. And maybe we should just go have a play, like, just do something different. It's the same way, like, when you're at home, sometimes everything is totally fine. Everything's good at home. But then you decide you want to go to the movies, so you're going to go watch Titanic. You could sign up for it, man. You paid for it. You went there knowing you were going to get it. This is Titanicville. It's not amplifying, it's just recording. But are you having a hard time hearing me? Okay. But you can all hear me okay, can't you? Because otherwise I can amp up too. So we sat around and we said, hey man, like, let's go out for a play. And we said, well, how are we going to pull that off? But we figured it out. Like, it's all done by density variations. Like, this whole universe, the manifested universe, we made it out of just a field of nothingness that has density variations. Like, out of the 12, we created 12 values, that we appreciate in this field of unit of consciousness. And we created density variations enough to be able to create matter and energy in this whole universal show. And the whole show we made for one purpose, and that's for fun. Like, we wanted to have an entertainment of some kind of show that we could have other than our infinite bliss mode. And so we said, hey man, let's try this out. Like, we're going to try to kind of forget that we're the unit of consciousness. We're going to imagine that we're just a little piece in the play, and then we're going to see what that's like for a while, and eventually we're going to be tired of that, and we're going to get back to unit of consciousness again. And that's the game that we play. And this is it, man. Like, if you, as long as we stay in the state of separateness, ego, we will suffer. And that's what we wanted to do, because there's no suffering in that, kind of bliss mode. So we wanted to see what it's like to suffer a little bit. And then we get tired of the suffering, we can get out of it. And that's what we're doing. And it's how to get out of this. Like, the reason you came here, if you really want to know what is your real reason for coming here, is because this life field is not satisfying in itself. Like, you will find, no matter what you do on planet Earth, and no matter what you attain on this realm of consciousness, it will not be satisfying to you. You will always say, hey man, isn't there something else? Is that all that it is? And it has an existential angst. Like, there is an unfulfilled part of the psyche. As long as it's an ego, it will never be totally satisfied. And the only way that you can get back into remembering is you have to go back into unit of consciousness. But unit of consciousness is who we are. It's nothing new, and it's not that we're not there now. Like, it's just we are that, and we never really left it. It's just a dream. It's like the same way you have a dream, you go to sleep, you're going to have a dream at night. This is just another dream that we're having, this dream of separation, like that you're this name, this form, this time, this space. Ultimately, you can wake up for that while you're living. You don't have to die. Like, heaven and hell exist here and now on planet Earth. They're not something that is later or somewhere else. They're here and now. Here and now on planet Earth is the potential to live in heaven and the potential to live in hell. And the way that you create your experience of heaven and hell is with the energy that you put out. And if you live a life according to the Ashtanga yoga, the values of yoga, which we'll go over, you will live in heaven, because you're putting out energy that is in alignment with the unit of consciousness. Like, the unit of consciousness, who we are and who you are. Like, don't ever think you're different than that. You are not different than the unit of consciousness. You are the unit of consciousness. Anything other than that is a dream that you're having, that we're having here and now for fun. We're having the unit of that experience for fun. And it's more fun, like, in a way, the way you really appreciate heaven is if you've gone through hell. It's like, it's hard to really appreciate heaven unless you've lived in hell a while. And the more you've lived in hell, the more you appreciate heaven. And so hell has its purpose because it creates a kind of gratitude. Like, I'll just give you a few little examples. When I first came to this land, it was swarming with mosquitoes, and there wasn't any water. There was absolutely no water. I had to bring water in, 5 gallons or 10 gallons for the weekend, and I would, have to ration it, between washing my dishes and washing my body and washing whatever I need water with, And now I have 55 gallons a minute pouring out from this well. Every minute I can get 55 gallons. I used to go up to the neighbor's house and fill up cans of water and bring them down here and dump them into tanks, when we didn't have enough water. Like, that's how it was. So for now and for the rest of my life, I value water. Every time I put on a faucet of water, I don't think like the city people who, this is just what happens out of the pipes. I value every drop and every moment. And then for the first 7 years here, there was no electricity. Like, I had a funky windmill that kept breaking, a little portable generator. So and we could only plug in one or two things at a time. It was always breaking that inverter. So now whenever I have this electricity, I'm so grateful for that. You see, so it's that lack that makes the gratitude. You see what I mean? And in your life, it's like the deeper the pain and the suffering that you have experienced in your life, the deeper that has gone, the bigger the bowl is that holds your joy. You know, it's like all of that suffering, it's like creates a mold that ultimately will form a bowl that will be filled with joy. So it's just like, you know, the amount of suffering that you've experienced is also going to be equal to the amount of joy you're going to feel. And also the joy that you feel in not suffering. Like if you had a really, like I had a frozen shoulder not too long ago. I couldn't move I had an accident with a ladder. I couldn't move my arm up. But now every time I move my arm up, I'm so grateful, you know, for my arm. I would never have had the gratitude for my arm if I hadn't, you know, gone for 6 months without being able to move it above my head. You see what I mean? So when you have in life, when challenges come into your life, you have to accept those as gifts from God. Like you cannot live life with a fear of pain or suffering or challenge. Like if you live like that, then you're not living. Like the only way to live life is you have to be fearless. You have to be completely fearless of life, and you have to trust in God completely. When I mean God, I mean the unit of consciousness. Like anybody who does not know about God, you know, about the unit of consciousness, is lost in Maya. Like Maya is the grand illusion. And the grand illusion is that we are something separate and that God is something separate, and when I die, I'm going to die. Like that is the epitome of ignorance is that. If you want to know what is Maya. Maya is when you forget that you're the unit of consciousness on every level, and you just think that you're a body and a mind, and that you're subject to birth and death, and the end of the death. At the end of death, you die. And if you think that way, then you know that you have a ways to go on your path. And if you know that when you die, that your consciousness that you are is eternal and it does not die, then you're one step ahead. And if you've experienced that while you're living, then you're a Jivan Muktan. Like the goal is to have that experience here and now. Like don't wait to die to go to heaven. Be in heaven now. Like from this very moment, you can do it. Every one of us can do it. You can make a pact now that from this moment for the rest of my life, I'm going to live in heaven, because whatever comes into my life, I will accept it with joy and appreciation as it comes. Like the moment, like the yamas and niyamas, like you know the yamas and niyamas, we're going to start with Ashtanga yoga. What I'm just saying to you right now is the introduction to Ashtanga yoga. If you have ahimsa, which is the first, I would just say the yamas and the niyamas are a scientific method for going from egoism to unit of consciousness. That's what it is. It's like if you yoga, the word yoga means union or oneness. Yoga means union. And it's the union of the self with the self. The little self with the big self is yoga. That's the goal of life. Like everything else that we do in this life is a joke. Like it means very little. The only thing, the real goal of goals of this life, there's only one real goal of this life, and that is to attain God consciousness, unit of consciousness, while you are living. Like don't think you're going to get it after you die. It's not. When you die, you just go from one classroom into the next. Like when you were in 11th, you were in high school, you were in 10th grade, you die, you go into 11th grade. 10th grade and 11th grade are not that different. And 11th grade and 12th grade are not that different. And even 12th grade and your first year of college aren't that different. They're all, you know, just one little step more, you know, along the path. But the purpose of all of this schooling is only one thing. And you should have that, like in your mind, in your life, you should have one pointed, laser-like concentration. Everything in your life has one purpose, one goal, and that is to attain unit of consciousness. That's what life is about. Everything is that. No matter what little steps you make, that is the purpose of your life. My life is about attaining unit of consciousness. And it's not that you have to attain it. You just have to remember it. It's not that it isn't happening now. It is. It is happening now. It's not that you have to achieve something that has not already been there. It's just something like the clouds are there and they're hiding your view of the sun. Like you cannot see the sun as long as there are clouds. And the clouds are egoism. And the egoism has 6 main layers to it, which we'll go over. There's 6 layers to this illusion of Maya. But the way to get over Maya is to align with unit of consciousness. And the way you align with unit of consciousness is to have the intention that God has. God, the unit of consciousness, I don't know, like the word God may offend some people because, there's all kinds of like religion, religious practices that turn people off in the name of God. But God is the unit of consciousness. Like the universe itself is not random. It's impossible. Like anyone who's truly a scientist realizes that this play is accurate to almost 40 different decimal points. Like you could not create a universe if certain universal laws were not tuned to at least 40 decimal points. Like one little decimal point off, the universe would either keep expanding or would contract back into the singularity. For it to have like developed Earth and all of us, it is not because this is happening because there was an explosion 14 billion years ago that had no consciousness or nothing or intention behind it, and all of a sudden all this matter just arranges perfectly in perfect order out of who knows why, and all of a sudden there's life forms. And like that idea of the atheist idea is the most, it's, you know how it goes? It goes like this: give me one big miracle and I'll explain everything else. The one big miracle that life came from, the universe came out of nothing and all of a sudden it's there. Okay, given that happened, okay, I can explain everything else through evolution. But that is like insanity. Like there's no scientist. It's a cult. It's like the cult of science. It's like the ultimate ignorant religion. It has become a religion of ignorance. And people who call themselves scientists ignore these quantum experiments that have gone on for 100 years, this double slit experiment. I don't know, does anybody know about the double slit experiment? Yeah, the double slit experiment proves that quantum experiments are affected by whether they're observed or not. So conscious experience affects quantum experiments. So consciousness affects physics, and if you integrate the consciousness into physics, then the whole universe makes sense. There are 12 major aspects of physics that are unexplained right now that all make sense if you integrate consciousness into the standard model of physics, and that's what I have in this book. It's the integration of that. So we're going to go over the yamas and niyamas very quickly. I know you've gone over them. I'm just going to give you just the essence of them in a nutshell. Is that okay? The first is ahimsa. Ahimsa means, it's translated here as kindness. It means literally, ahimsa means harm. Ahimsa is no harm. So it's no harm. That in your life, if you put out no harm will come back to you, and that's the smartest thing to do. It's all this whole universe is nothing but a mirror, and where we are here and now is not random. Like we are here and now in this moment because of the karma of what we've done in the past, and whatever we do here and now will create our future. So the world is not chaotic and it's not unfair. You have to, whatever comes into your life, the moment it comes in, accept it with gratitude. And whatever suffering comes to you, don't blame the vehicle of the suffering. Like like say somebody hurts you, they give you whatever they did to you. It's not that person to be blamed. It happened because of your own karma. You have to accept that person and be grateful that whatever they did to you wasn't worse. And I'm not saying you can't communicate with them, but that is the greatest, that's called tapas. Like you go, Ahimsa is kindness, satya is truthfulness, asteya is non-stealing. Asteya means also don't take more than you need. Like, when non-stealing is also, you can steal the resources of the world by having, if you have an apartment in each city that you never go to once a year, like these people who have these big rich mansions here, they're here a week out of the year, and otherwise they keep this big mansion, just sitting empty for themselves. That's stealing the use of that land, that resources from homeless people who have nothing. So in your life, you should take as little as possible, live as simply as you can on planet Earth. Do not make a big footprint. Minimal. Be a minimalist in your life. And give as much as you can, take as little as you can. And then you're in line with, nature's, by non-stealing. Brahmacharya, I'm going to talk about, like I've tried brahmacharya out a lot in my life. I suggest, most of you, like, go for a long period, make a vow, I'm going to go for several months without having sex and not even thinking about it. Like I'm taking a break from sex. And do it at least for a few months out of your life and see what happens. Like just give yourself a break. And you'll see that if you can free yourself from from being a slave to your mind. Like the main thing in yoga is you have to be the master of your mind. You have to know, who am I? Like that's jnana yoga. Who am I? You are not your mind. You are not your body. You are the consciousness that is watching it. You're the witness of a phenomena. The consciousness does not need a body to be alive. Like the consciousness is not dependent on your mind and your body. They're just mirrors for your consciousness. The consciousness that we are is eternal. It cannot be born and it will not die. There's nothing you can ever do to kill your consciousness. If you're conscious now, if you have consciousness now, you have always had consciousness and you will always have consciousness. Consciousness is like energy or matter. It cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It's fundamental. It's the fundamental element of the universe is consciousness. And so that can never be changed. That your awareness will always have awareness. And not just you, everyone. Anybody who has lived, your mother, your father, your grandma, every animal, whatever has consciousness now, has always had it, and it will always have it. It's just a question of what you're conscious of. And if you want to be conscious of having God consciousness, unit of consciousness, it's very useful to have a human birth. It's from a human birth that you attain unit of consciousness, and that you have the opportunity. So anybody who has a human birth should be extremely grateful and extremely careful of maintaining their body in good health. And I would say in that, do not take risks to the well-being of your body in the name of fun. Like don't do extreme kind of sports that could harm your body. Don't do dangerous things, Be very careful and prudent with the use of your body. Keep your body radiantly healthy and try to live as long a life as you can. If you go vegan, you can live for 120 years in perfect health. Like at 120 years, you should be able to go to Baldwin Beach, swim halfway across the beach and come back, And it's doable. It's absolutely doable if you practice the yoga practices to live to 120, even 140, 160, 180. You can do it. And the older you live, the more useful you'll be to this planet. So it's just a gecko. Okay. Aren't they cute? Those little green geckos, they're adorable. They're so friendly. They're not afraid of people at all. They'll come up and eat. If you become the slave of your mind, that's what most people are. Like most planet Earth people are absolute slaves to their mind. Their mind wants this, oh, I want this, I want that. Whatever their mind tells they want, they have to go get it. They have to fulfill their mind's desires. It is not your obligation to satisfy every desire that your mind can come up with. You have to analyze your mind. Hey buddy, who are you? What do you want? No, I'm sorry, you're not getting that. I'll give you this, I'll give you that, that's it. I want you to do this and that. You have the reason, the way that you become the master of your mind is you have to come up with a mission in your life. Like you have to ask God to clarify for you why God made you in the first place. Like what is the greatest good that your life energy can do for planet Earth? Like how can I serve? If you have that, if you ask and you have your intention of your life, how may I serve? How may I serve? What can I do with my life energy to help planet Earth so when I'm on my deathbed, when I'm leaving this, reincarnation for the next thing, and I talk to the unit of consciousness, and the unit of consciousness says, hey man, what did you do this time around? What's going on? What did you do with the gift that I gave you? How did you help my planet? You can say, hey man, I got yoga to spread all over. I help people go vegan. I kept myself healthy. I helped my mom. Like everybody who's in your circle, be an angel to those people. But don't say yes to everything. I'm not saying you have to be the slave of everyone. You just have to be within your ability to serve and still maintain your own peace and harmony. Give whatever you can give to planet Earth in every single way. Every moment of your life. Don't waste a second of your life. Like let every second of your life be useful to the well-being of humanity. And if you do that, you will see that unit of consciousness will flow through you. It's like you don't need to have an ego to run this show. Like God can function through your system perfectly. Like the same way, if you have a jet that takes off in Maui and it's going to New York, say, the pilot touches the steering wheel, the plane's aviator. It touches that only a few times during the takeoff. It makes slight adjustments on the takeoff and the landing. But other than that, the pilot doesn't touch a thing. He just watches the computer running the plane. The plane is completely flown by a program, a computer program, the entire distance, except for the few minutes in takeoff and a few minutes in landing. There are the slightest minor adjustments that the pilot makes. The same way, the unit of consciousness can function through you if you allow yourself to have that experience of if you align with its intention, the alignment of your intention and God's intention, which is to serve. God's intention is to serve everyone through you. Like if we use you as a channel for blessing everyone. And if you are aligned with that, you will see that it will function through you. And you don't have to think that the thought that I think is my thought. You'll see God will think you, God will move you, God will do everything, and you don't have to even use your mind. Like, it just automatically flows through you, and it happens. And that's called unit of consciousness. When you're in that state, you're just the channel of its energy flowing through, and it functions through. The way you tuned in is because everything happens way better than you could do yourself. Everything. Like you can't sing that well, you can't write that well, you can't talk that well. You know what you can do, and you know when something happens like way better than you can do. When the way better than you can do happens, you know who's pulling that off. It's happening through you. That's what it is. We're going to go through. Aparigraha is generosity. Saucha is purity. Santosha is contentment. Contentment is really everything. Like, if you want to know, all you have to do is be content. Like, whatever's happening in your life, it's happening. So if you can just be happy about it, you can always be happy. It's the main thing. Contentment is another way of saying gratitude. It's really the same thing. And then tapas is the main thing. I'll just say, Swami Shivananda said this. He said, adapt, adjust, accommodate, bear insult, bear injury, highest sadhana. Okay? You have to bear insult and bear injury. Like, don't retaliate. Don't retaliate. It's like somebody injures you, don't injure them back and don't say something nasty back to them. Like tapas means you end that by just absorbing it. Like you let it be, but you don't let it into you. You just let it roll off of you in a way. Any kind of whatever anybody says about you, that's what they think, and everybody has their vision depending on who they are. Everybody sees the world as a mirror of who they are, so they project their own shortcomings into everybody else. Most people don't want to admit their own weaknesses, and so instead they project them on everybody else. So just because somebody's projecting nonsense on you doesn't mean that you have to be insulted by that. You have to just let go of it and don't know who you are, and don't even try to impress the outside world. Like there's nobody in the outside world who you have to impress. You only have one person to impress, and that's your own conscience. And if you impress your own conscience by living in alignment with what you know is the highest good for you, anybody who wants to say anything, you can laugh at that person. You don't have to be insulted by anything. Swadhyaya is self-study. Swadhyaya means use your life energy to constantly be improving yourself. Like when you watch movies at night, do not watch like entertainment kind of stuff that's nonsense. Only watch stuff that is really educational and useful and vital. Like don't waste your time with sports and with politics and with novels and stories and fiction. Like it's not worth your energy. Like be one pointed and sharp, and use your time for attaining unit of consciousness. Like study spiritual books, read things that are inspirational, be around people, be serviceful. Like make your whole life into 24 hours of sadhana. That's it. It is. It's not that you practice yoga, but you become it. You live it. You breathe it. It is who you are. That's what it is. Okay. Now I'm going to take questions on yamas and niyamas now. Does anybody have questions on yamas or niyamas? Any questions? Okay. Is this good for you, the pace that we're going at? Is that good? Okay. Okay. I'm just going to, spin through. Asanas are basically learn to keep your body relaxed all the time. Like be constantly doing asanas. Don't ever stop doing asanas. All 24 hours a day you're doing an asana. So try as much as you can to keep your shoulders up and back, keep your chest expanded, like wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, so that you can breathe well and get plenty of prana into your system. It's all a question of your posture. Like try to, as much as possible, keep your shoulders back. Wherever you're sitting, whatever you're doing, so that your chest is well expanded. Pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Okay, so basically, asanas is just a way to keep your body healthy. And I'm not going to talk about asanas because that's the whole program class. You get a lot about asanas. But all those asanas that you do, try to take those on day by day to integrate it, hatha yoga, into your life, so that wherever you are, you're doing hatha yoga. Like try to just make it part of your life experience. Even like when you're driving, see that you're comfortable. Like use like a pillow to have a lumbar support. Keep your chest expanded. See that your mind is relaxed all the time. Like don't allow your mind to chatter. Like that's what I'll say about like the goal of yoga is to have mastery over the mind. Like there should not be a thought or an action that happens through your body without your permission. You have to be the master of it, like be the complete controller of your mind. Do not allow your mind to chatter unless you want it to. Like you could say to your mind, okay, I'll let you have 10 minutes, you can chatter about anything you want. So you give your mind a period like that, 10 minutes of chatter. You can think whatever you want. You have 10 minutes of free time, just chatter. And then you can say to your mind, now the next 10 minutes I don't want one thought. Be totally still. No thoughts whatsoever. Like, just let God work through me. Like, I do that when you guys go at nighttime, you go, like, I go back to my space there. If I make dinner, I'll say in my mind, okay, the entire time I'm making dinner, I don't want one thought out of you. Just shut up. And my mind, I hear this high-pitched nada sound. If it sounds like, some people I think might think it's tinnitus or something, but there's a sound like this that you can hear in your ears if you call the nada. And if you develop that sound, that just hearing this high-pitched tone, this part of your consciousness, you can stick your mind there. You can say, hey man, just listen to that. And then it gives your mind something to do. It's like, the thing about a mind is this. You always have to be aware of something. You can't say to your mind, be aware of nothing. That's impossible. Like, the mind will always be aware of something. So if you don't want it to be thinking, you have to give it an assignment. And so one is the way I do it is I say, listen to the nada. And then my mind knows how to do that. I can hear it right now while I'm listening to you. I can hear it this second. I hear it all the time. Anytime I put my mind to, I have it. It's there. And I can say, just go there, listen to that. And my mind is trained, so it loves that sound. It'll stick there and it won't do anything else. Just stays in the nada. And it bubbles with that in bliss. It has this bliss. Like, I can go swimming down here. I don't have to think a thought the whole time. Hey, shut up. And then you have this, beautiful music that just plays within an, eternal orchestra that will play for you. If you don't have that, then people use a mantra, which I'm going to give you, if you like, I'm going to give you the mantra that Swamiji gave us. And it's the most powerful mantra for hearing the nada. It's the mantra that's made to open up the channel to hear the inner vibration. So if your mind's not able to just hear the nada and you can just shut up and hear that and it's just chattering, one thing you can do is anytime you see a thought rise, you can say, oh, that's a thought. Like, you have to just identify it. If you identify a thought when it first arises, then you can just let it go. Like, you have to learn to have another space other than the thinking mode. It's just like a television. You can switch channels, like, there isn't just one channel. There are multiple channels within your consciousness. And learn to have another channel other than the thinking channel. Like, learn to have the meditating channel. And in the meditating channel, learn to integrate that so you have that 24 hours a day. You can turn off your mind anytime you want. Then you're the master of your mind and not its slave. The only way you know that you're the master of the mind is because you can turn it off. If you can't turn it off, you're not its master yet. It's your master, because it's always thinking. And if it's thinking thoughts that you don't want it to think, that's even worse. Like, don't allow your mind to worry. Like, the mind is always like, and to go into things, somebody has to get that dove out of here. It's not allowed to be here. Okay, can you just, okay. The doves have to stay out of the house. No doves roosting up there. The mind, ultimately, yoga is mental mastery. That's what it is. It's mental mastery. And it's teaching even your dove, man, like even my kids, or my kids, they have to all know their manners, Everybody has to have manners. And so your mind has to have manners too. So, but the one thing about your mind is you have to know is that you have to, your mind has to be your ally, and you can't completely alienate it. It's like you have to be clever in dealing with the mind, and you can't freak it out, because ultimately it has to be cooperative. So when you give it this stuff, make sure that you do it in a way that it feels good to yourself. Like when you practice yoga, meditation, or even mental mastery, you have to do it in a way that you're not fighting with your mind, but you're negotiating with it. You see what I mean? And that you can get it to agree with you, and you're not like its enemy, you're its ally. And it comes to trust you and know that it doesn't have to chatter all the time. It's not necessary to worry about things. And once you think about something a few times, if you think about it another time and you just get the same output, don't think about that anymore. Like, don't think about things that don't come up with a new solution. Like, if it comes up with the same thing, thinking about the same thing over and over again is what's called worry. It's called worry. You know, it's not thought. You know, so you have to, don't allow your mind to worry. That's the worst thing you can do. You know, be aware of it, and if it's not coming up with something, then let it be quiet. Now we're going to take a couple-minute break now, but we're not going to space out. We're just going to do some stretching. Is that okay? This is what Swami Satchidananda said as the summary of the yogic path. It's all thy name, it's all thy form, it's all thy deed, and it's all for good. Everything that happened in this universe, from the moment the Big Bang started until the whole universe returns back to the singularity, whatever has happened or will happen in that time is all nothing but the expression of the name of God. It's the vibration of God, the unit of consciousness vibration creates the universe. It's all created by a vibration, the holy vibration, which is nothing other than the nada that we hear. That high-pitched tone is our link to get back into that vibration. The vibration, it's all thy name. It's all the vibration of God. It's all thy form. Whatever you look at in your life, like, do not look at life as ego separate. This is not a separate thing from me. Don't look at life as something outside of yourself. It's all within you. Like, you're looking at everything that's within you. You're not looking at something outside of you. It's all God. Everywhere you look, you cannot see anything but God. God is everywhere as everything. It's manifesting as everything. Don't live in duality. Live in unity. See, when you look and you see something, you're not seeing a leaf. You're seeing God in that form of the leaf. This is God as the mic. This is God as this. This is God. This is God as that person. When this person comes up and talks to you, that's God talking to you. So if you see life in that way, it's all thy name. It's all God's form. And it's all God's deed. That means God is doing all of these things through everyone. And it's all for good. Now, when I always could understand it's all thy name, it's all thy form, it's all thy deed, that all makes sense to me. But it all being for good, that did not make that much sense to me for a long time. Like, I would say I struggled with that for many years, particularly with the Holocaust. You know, like, how could you say the Holocaust is good and that happened, that's all for good? But even my dad came to one of the talks in Swamiji's, and he said, he stood up when Swamiji was saying that. He said, well, how about the Holocaust? Can you say that Hitler and the Holocaust and all that was for good? And Swamiji said, yes, it was. But you don't know the whole picture of what it is. You know, whatever suffering that anyone goes through, and even death, it's not really death because nobody really dies. And you go through this incarnation, and who knows what you had to purge out. You know, everyone has their what they have done in the past that creates their birth in this life, and their parents and how they come. You know, that's, everybody is being born exactly where they should be born, you know, for the experience they should be having next, and their life experience is that. So if you think that way, you can always be happy. That's all I could say. And you can always allow God's energy to flow through you, because you're not being hidden by Maya. Okay? Is that good? Okay. So in finishing Ashtanga yoga, the rest we're going to say pranayama are breathing practices. I could say, if you can learn alternate nostril breathing, are you teaching alternate nostril breathing? If you can do that Nadi Shuddhi and Sukha Purvaka, you'll find that will balance the left and right hemispheres of your brain, and you'll start feeling peaceful. Like, really, a lot of the peace in your mind is just by having peace between your left and right hemispheres of your brain. Like, there's the intellectual part, there's the emotional part. Like, both of those have to be friends with each other. Like, they both have their purpose and their benefit. And so have your ha and your tha, your sun side and your moon side balanced by doing pranayama. Pratyahara is turning your sense within. Like, you have to know for a fact, beloved brothers and sisters, that happiness is not something that will be achieved outside of you. It's not in having a relationship. It's not in having the greatest job. Like, what happiness is the experience of your own peace within, which you will experience when your mind is still. Like, the goal of yoga is summarized in the second sutra of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha is the goal of yoga, which means yoga, the experience of oneness, unit of consciousness, happens when the chitta, which is your mind stuff, and its vrittis, which is waveforms or thoughts, are calmed. That's it. All you have to do is get your mind to be still, and it will reflect your own consciousness perfectly, and you'll know who you are. Like, that's the whole goal of life, is to turn off the chatterbox. And the chatterbox you turn off through these yoga practices, to have the ability to do that. So, and pratyahara is the ability to, instead of always thinking, oh, I'm going to be happy by getting this, and that, I need that to be happy, I need that to be happy, I need that, oh, now I have that, I need that. Like, if you go around trying to satisfy your crazy mind, it will drive you crazy for the rest of your life and for 10 million lifetimes after that too. And you will never satisfy it. I'll guarantee you one thing. There has never been one person in the course of all human events who has satisfied their mind. Like, if you look at Alexander the Great, he conquered every country, but he's still not happy. He wants India too. And everybody's like that. The mind will never, ever, 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 ever be satisfied. It's impossible to satisfy the mind. So don't waste your time and your energy to satisfy your mind. It's not going to happen. The only thing you can do with the mind is to learn how to keep it still and be its master. Say, you think about that, you do that. The mind makes the world's best slave, but it makes the worst master. It's the world's greatest tyranny as a master, and it's the world's greatest servant as a servant. It should be your servant and not your master. So that's what the little talk you have to have with your mind. And just because your mind has a desire doesn't mean it's going to get it. It gets what you decide to give it. And whatever it gets, you should be happy with that. That's how you should train your mind. Pratyahara, bring your attention within. Dharana is the beginning of meditation. The way that you get a hold of your mind is you have to learn to concentrate at one thing at a time. Like, say your mind won't shut up. You can't get it to shut up. That's okay. Say, okay, you won't shut up? Then just repeat this mantra. I'll give you a mantra. You just repeat this. Or if that's too much, listen to your breath. Just watch your breath. Or you could say, watch this candle flame. Put your attention on that candle flame if you want something like that. But learn how to control your mind and don't let it run. Don't let it think thoughts without your permission. So that's the beginning of concentration, is dharana. And then when it gets a little bit more established, then it's dhyana, which means that you're actually experiencing stillness and not just the mind chatter. And when you hear the stillness, you'll hear this high-pitched tone will come in your consciousness when your mind gets very still. You'll hear a component. If you don't hear it, you ask yourself, do you all have headphones? Does everybody have headphones or some kind of earplugs or something like that? If you don't, you can take cotton and put it in your ear, put it in your ear. But I did that for the first 5 years when I meditated. Like, I really think everyone should get it. Like, I got from, like, those construction uh, headphones. There's the kind that block out all the sound. There's the kind that just block out loud sound. That's not the type you want. The kind that, so put something that restricts your ear so you can't hear any outside sound. And then ask yourself, what do I hear now that there's no sound? What is the sound of silence sound like? What does it sound if I don't hear anything? What do I hear? What is the sound that's in my brain when there's no sound that I hear? There's no such thing as silence. If anybody thinks there's silence, they're just not aware of it. Nobody could ever experience silence. Silence does not exist in the universe. There's no such thing because there's always the nada. Like, God itself has a vibration that never stops. So, and consciousness has that vibration. So if you're still enough, you'll hear it. And otherwise, ask yourself what you do here, and that's what you start with. Dhyana, dropping all efforts and letting go. I wouldn't say really it's dropping all efforts because there is still the intention of being still. Like, as long as you're meditating, you're in a flow of consciousness that is in stillness. And the stillness leads into samadhi, which is the unitive state. And I'll just talk a little about samadhi. You can't really talk about samadhi because it's not here. But it's a real state that we can all attain. Like, you shouldn't think of it as something you know, somebody just should learn how to turn the ringer off on that. You don't have to have, I mean, that's just a phone. Okay, okay. There must be a way to turn it off because that's just for outgoing phone calls, emergencies. Okay. I'm going to just give you, like all the yogis, they don't like to ever, nobody wants to talk about samadhi, but I'll say this about samadhi, that I have these experiences, so it's not like that there's nothing. There is an experience that you can have of, there's not there's not an awareness of you being a person, like you're not aware of who you are, where you are, what you are, but you're aware of an experience of peace, and you're aware of a sound vibration that's happening. And to me, it's totally fulfilling. I can't, like if I'm in that state, there's nothing else that I want and there's nothing else that I need, and it works. So there is a way of satisfying your mind just by stillness, and that's what's called samadhi. And samadhi is just the state of our natural state of oneness. It's like if you're not worried about anything, you're just peaceful, you're in samadhi. It's like samadhi is the natural state. It's like samadhi gets disturbed when there's worries and thoughts and this and that. But if you just take everything else away, it's what's there naturally. It's who you are naturally, even though we may not be aware of it because it's always being covered up. It's something like the stars are here now. Like, like if you, right now, like at night, last night, did you see how many stars there were out? We can see all those stars. But you can't see them during the day because the sun's out. So the sun is so bright that it keeps you from seeing the stars. The same way, the unit of consciousness is subtle, and it's covered up by the mind's thoughts, the mind's chatter. So when the mind turns off, the sun turns off, then you see the stars have always been there. It's not like you have to bring them there. They're there even now. The stars are there. They're just not visible to you because the mind is so active and chattery. So you turn off the sun and you'll see the stars. So does anyone have any questions on the Ashtanga yoga? Anything that you want to ask on that?
You said the pose was Maui.
What's that?
The pose with the breathing was Maui.
Oh, this one that we were doing, it's Nali Kriya. Nali Kriya. Nali, and that could be Maui Kriya, that would be cool. Nali Kriya. It's a kriya means it's one of the cleansing practices. Like there are six cleansing practices. It's one of the six cleansing practices is, to purify your body is that nali kriya. Most problems start with digestion problems. So if you can keep your digestion really powerful by doing that nali kriya, it tones all your digestive organs and cleans out your liver, your kidneys, like any kind of organ. Like every cell gets squeezed and compressed. Uh, that will keep you healthy. That's the essence of health is that nali kriya. It's the most important of the asanas. Yeah.
How much time do you spend per day meditating now, and what was your peak
Okay.
meditation
Okay.
day?
Well, I'll tell you about that. Um, I think when I was living at the ashram, I was like, I was so gung ho in meditation. It's hard to imagine. You know how people can be young people. They're like, especially when you start something that's not what your birth was. I was so, I used to go to the 4:30 meditation. I would get up at 4 o'clock. I would go to bed at 10. I would get up at 4. And then I would go, the first meditation was from 4:30 to 6, so I'd meditate for an hour and a half. Then the second meditation was from 6:30 to 7:30. I went to that also. And then I would do my hatha yoga practices until about 8:30. So from 4 to 8:30, I did sadhana every morning, and then I went to noon meditation for half an hour, and I went to evening meditation for half an hour. So I would be meditating about 5.5 hours a day, or some kind of meditation or hatha yoga practice. I'd be doing that, and now in my in this era of my life, I've incorporated very much into my life. So like I don't like I am meditation. I don't have to practice meditation in a way. Like when I go swimming, I meditate. Like the entire time I'm down the ocean, I pretty much tell my mind like no thoughts, man. Or if there is something that I want to think about, I'll ask for some inspiration. I do it, but I do it consciously. I don't like allow chatter, and um, and I would say I practice about a half an hour of meditation in the morning myself, in my own practice, and about a half an hour in the evening, like before I go to bed. Like I sit for about a half an hour before I go to bed every night. I meditate. Like and in the morning, as long as there's not some crazy thing that starts up, because there are times when I don't have a minute. But to meditate, like sometimes we have the workers come here at 7 in the morning. You'd never believe what actually goes on here, and I don't really have much time. But Swamiji told me, like he told us, his students, that if you're doing karma yoga, which is like selfless service, if you're doing selfless service, God can meditate for you too, which I believe happens. Like he used to say, like we used to do retreats at Yogaville, sometimes that had 400 or 500 people. Like there'd be a class like this I'd be teaching, but there might be 400 people in that large hall. And when we would do that, we really wouldn't have time, the staff people, to do any of our sadhana for like 2 weeks or something. We'd be, running around hosting these major retreats. And so Swamiji said, well, I'll do your sadhana for you, during that time. If you're doing this work for me, I'll do it. And I would say somehow it happens, that you can get by in doing it if you don't have the time. But I do it, like I'm able to do it virtually all the time. Like when I make my dinner, from the moment I make, like I decide I'm going to have dinner, I'm meditating the entire time. Like I open the refrigerator door, and what comes out, something will jump out like, oh, that's what I want. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so my hand will go for it, and I don't have to think about what I'm going to make, how I'm going to make it, what's going to happen. I'm just bubbling in the nada the whole time. And if I'm not doing that, then I put on, some of you guys might have heard, like I listen to these Wayne Dyer talks. I don't know if anybody knows who Wayne Dyer. Does anyone here know who Wayne Dyer is? A few people. Wayne Dyer, you should write his name down. Just if you want to really understand what I'm telling you and really get in onto a deeper level, if you listen to his talks, he has a book called The Power of Intention. And he also has another one of 101 Ways to Transform Your Life. Um, and they're both on audio books. You can listen to them on YouTube. So I've listened to them in English 100 times, but I find it more useful to listen to them in French personally because for some reason my French brain is more open-minded than my English brain, and it gets into it, comes right into my soul without any oh, I heard that before. Not the same thing again. That my English brain is go, oh, Wayne, how can you write 100 books? They all say the same thing. That's what my English brain says. But my French brain says, wow, where'd that come from? But it's my good karma. I'll tell you why. Because when Wayne Dyer, he's a great speaker, and he's a psychologist who read Eastern thought and translated it into Western minds. So if your parents, for instance, and people who don't know about yoga, you're trying to explain them what all this is going on. If you get them to listen to Wayne Dyer, he could like convince anybody because he's so logical. He's like perfect. So I gave him his first copy of the Yoga Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita, and I taught him his first meditation class, Wayne Dyer. I went to a talk that he gave in Lahaina about 25 years ago, 26 years ago. And he was starting to talk about meditation and things like that. I could tell he didn't really know much. So I told him, I'm a student of Swamiji, and I could share with you some ideas that could help you that you could, use for your teaching. And I gave him a copy of Swamiji's Yoga Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. And and he ended up meeting Swamiji and Deepak Chopra, through me. And and he got into that whole thing, and then he translated in a perfect way that goes right into my soul. So my good karma comes back to me of getting the inspiration. So what I was saying, that if you don't want to meditate because you're too tired or whatever, and you're eating dinner or something, put on one of his talks and just listen to that. And then don't allow your mind to think about the other things. You say, okay, listen to that. So I do that for my Hatha yoga when I'm doing Hatha, because I need to be entertained when I'm doing Hatha. And so I have his talks on in French. Or I listen to Swami Satchidananda's talks or Swami Shivananda's talks. But it's called the Sangha. Like, if you want to make spiritual progress, you have to surround yourself with people who are on the path, who are all in the same thing. And then, as a group, you're all supporting each other. You all go together. It's almost impossible to do it totally on your own. It's like when you want to cross a really treacherous river. Like, we had those at Yogaville. We had an airplane, and when it would flood, we had to move the airplane. We have to cross this flooded stream to get to the airstrip. And to do that, we would all hold hands. Like, one person could not cross that stream by themselves. And if you slipped, you would be slipped away, you'd be swept away. The only way you can do it was a group of people, like 3 or 4 people holding hands. Then if one slips, at least there are other people. And as a mass, you can cross that river, in the same way the river of samsara, which the Maya, samsara is God's delusion. We made this delusion, man. It's like you and I, we sat around and we came up with this play. You can't blame God or anything, it's us. We decided that we wanted this experience of life and forgetfulness and coming back, and it's fun, man. It's the funnest play that we came up with. And you do that by the whole thing is done by love. If you want to know the bottom line of the whole show is about love. Like, God is nothing but a big bundle of love, and God wants to give love to everyone and to have everybody live in peace and joy, and this experience of life is that. So if you align in your life with love as your principal vision, your principal goal, or aloha, the spirit of aloha is the same thing. If you just imbibe that, so whoever you're with, you interact with them according to the golden rule, like you do as though that person is you. Like, don't treat that person as something outside of yourself. That's you in that form, and you're interfacing and serving yourself in that form. If you do that, everything in life functions for you, and there's nothing that won't work. Everything will work, and everything will work out, and there's nothing you really have to do. God will take care of everything. You just align with God's energy, and then God functions through you, and you've solved the puzzle of life. And that's what it's about. Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit, but can you just say a little bit more about like how you can like accept if someone close to you dies?
If somebody
It's like someone close to you dies.
somebody
You said
dies.
a little bit about like that you can like look at even death as
Oh yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
like
Everybody's going to die, man. There's nobody, nobody comes here with a permanent visa. It's all temporary visas. And the first thing you have to do is accept that. God made it that way. Like we made it that way. And the Bhagavad Gita says that the consciousness that we are is eternal. It cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It's not wetted by water. It's not burnt by fire. You can't steal it. You can't destroy it. It's there, and there's nothing you can do to lose that. So when people die, you have to be grateful. I think that in our culture, this idea of sorrow and grieving is overrated. I think it's like just really a form of insanity. And when people die, you should not think that you're going to be missing those people, because you're not going to miss them. Like for instance, Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer was really, even though I didn't see him that often, we were close friends. And he, came here with his family, and we used to go like kayaking, and swimming together, and I would pick him up at the airport and take him home, things like that. So when he passed, I could say, such a horrible loss in my life, and I was trying to get him to go vegan. He wasn't totally vegan. That's the problem. He died of coronary heart disease. He could have, and same with my guru, Swami Satchidananda. He was vegetarian, but he wasn't vegan. So I just want to tell you, if you go halfway, you want to be vegetarian but not vegan, you're not going to live past 90. Like you don't. The people who are the people who are not vegan, they have health problems by the time they get to 90, so, or before even. So the only way you can really hang healthy is to go vegan, because that arterial sclerosis is going to get you. That when you eat meat, there's deposits left in your arteries that are going to choke you, ultimately get you. Either you get a stroke or you get a heart attack, or you get some cancer. You're not going to escape that. So anyway, I begged him, and I kind of lost my friendship with him a little bit. I, pushed it because I was so pushy with him, and but I won't say completely lost it. But I certainly, like when he would invite me over for dinner, then he wasn't eating vegetarian food. Ram Dass and him, they weren't totally vegetarian. Then they're embarrassed a little bit because I'm around there. I'm only eating this and that. So it becomes a little tricky. But ultimately, everybody has their karma, and he lived as long as he lived. But my point is this: that I do not miss Wayne Dyer. Instead, I really feel that he's a deeper member of my soul, and I, listen to him, and I imbibe him, and I communicate with him on a deeper level. And so, all of the people in my life who have passed, I have not lost contact with any one of them. Like on the contrary, you can completely, they're available now to serve you and to help you with your mission, and that's all they want to do, and they're happy to help you. So just tune into them, and you'll feel that their love and their energy, it's just a deeper level of oneness. Like you cannot grieve that you've lost that person. That's insanity. You just have to know you've come into a deeper level, and they're within you. Like do not, and they're able to communicate with you in a deeper level, and even to animate you. Like you can kind of give Wayne a day to just take, kind of be part of your team to kind of animate you and teach this class. Like Wayne, see, I'm so sorry about this thing here, because normally Wayne would never sit for a talk. He never sat. He always had some kind of lapel mic, and he would walk around, and really, he was fascinating to watch him operate. around back and forth, and he's animated, he's talking to people, he's making it interesting, to be there, to see it, to be it, and he lived for that. So when people die, wake up. And they're not dying, man. Nobody dies, and they're closer to you than your heart, They're within you, and they want to be with you. Like the people who were part of your life, the last thing they want to do is go be somewhere else. They want to be with you as much as they ever did before. And you can.
Right now he's listening.
He's here right now. I know. Hey, Wayne, man. I love Wayne so much, and I didn't, I don't think that I really, like Khalil Gibran says that you never know the depth of your love until the moment of separation. You're like, I didn't even realize how much I loved him, and what, a blessing he was until he passed. And I, his books, I didn't have time to read all his books, until later when they're on audio and I can listen to them while I'm doing my yoga and stuff. So, Wayne, you got a big job here, man. Don't think you're off the hook. You are on the hook here. Stick around and help us out and help all these people, and the mission move forward. So. And you can do that with your parents, your family. Don't let anybody slip out of your immediate circle. Those people in your circle, hold on to them eternally. And also in the next birth, I think I'm going to see Wayne again with my parents. I'm not, I actually came up with the world's greatest team. My parents, my sisters, they're so cool. And I was born into this dynamic family where it was easy to grow up, and brother who was a genius. He was just like Siri. Do you know how Siri is? You can ask Siri anything. I had an older brother who's 11 months older. He knew absolutely everything. And all I had to do, if I didn't have to do my homework, how do I do this? He could explain anything to me in a second better than any teacher. And he said it funny. He always said it in jokes. So it was funny to hear him say it too. So and I'm sticking with that same team. I get, next birth, I'm gonna have my parents, they're already there. I got my brother, sister, I got the whole Wayne, Einstein. I got my major team set up, and you can go into your next birth with a lot of power, a lot of grace, and kind of keep the momentum going. I would like to see heaven on, pretty much heaven on earth in this very incarnation. I could see you could end the institution of war. You could have really peace on planet Earth. You could have a really dynamic, fun team. And I invite us all to stick together as a team. Every one of us, we don't have to leave at the end of this and go away. We can all stick together. We got the internet. You can all come back here again. We can have parties, and we could launch, a new movement on planet Earth, which is what I have as in kind of the next little segment, which I'll share with you. So, does that sound good? So you're not going to, when people die, you have to celebrate. You do not have a gross thing. And I'm not saying you're not crying, because you could cry. I could still think about these people and cry all the time. But that crying that you feel is just a kind of joy about the remembrance of how great they were, so, and so it's not like a kind of sadness of crying. It's just a kind of gratitude that, that in your lifetime, people like that manifested, in our lifetime. And it's a great blessing, that we live in a time when so many great souls are around, and it's easy to make spiritual progress because you're more or less hand-fed, in this moment. And I'm more or less hand-feeding you, to what I got, giving you the essence of what it's about. Okay.
Before when he died,
Hmm?
Wayne Dyer, before he died, he said that, he was ready anytime to the body to go.
Yeah.
And he was very, he wants everybody to be happy
All right.
when he leaves.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm planning to have a memorial here for Wayne. He gave, well, I'll show you, there's a, by your place there, that there's a Kuan Yin statue right by the steps going up. That was donated by Wayne. Yeah. Okay. In fact, there's a nice picture of him. I'll show you in here too, with me with Wayne. And I'll show you what he said while we're talking about Wayne. He's in the beginning here somewhere. Page what? Page 9? Okay, let's look on page 9. No, not page. Oh, you mean X9, 9 in the X, the X, 1X. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's a picture of Wayne Dyer, myself, and Ram Dass that was taken at Wayne's apartment in Katanapali. And this book is what he brought to me called The Power of Intention. And you can see he wrote it, Swaroop, it is such a genuine pleasure to be on this planet with you as colleagues. All love and light, Wayne Dyer, Maui, the 25th of July, 2004. So that was, that was almost to the day 14 years ago. Today's like, that was the 4th of July, right? 15 years ago. So it's been 15 years ago that he wrote that and, brought me that book as a gift. And that book, Power of Intention, is really a foundation of my book too. Like it's like this book is a clarification of his brilliant insight of the power that the universe itself has intention and the power of intention. Okay, so when people die, have a celebration for their life, and have a joy, have a party, and celebrate, what they did, and don't grieve too much. Like, grieving is really just a part of the ego's veil to grieve. Instead, rejoice. So, how are you guys doing? Any other? You have a question? Okay.
One is, and when I teach this principle, I'd say at least a dozen times I've had someone who doesn't believe in them say to me that, what do you say about a child who is born in immense suffering and in pain or with a disease? And
Yeah.
I understand it on like some kind of level, but I don't know how to articulate that to someone who is in such difficulty.
Okay. Okay. Then this is what I would say. I would say the unit of consciousness is aware of that, and that's also part of the perfection of the moment, and also that soul's unfoldment. Everyone who does something, you have to know, in your life, whatever you do, the reaction will come back to you, if not in this life, in the next lifetime. That's a fact. There's nothing, it's like science has cause and effect. Souls have cause and effect. That baby is not born for the first time. That baby is the ancient soul. And what it did some kind of mischief or something that made it that is the appropriate kind of a birth that it should be having at this time. Like, for instance, the Nazis who were there, they did a lot of damage to a lot of people, and they will be born in different, like, crazy situations for many lifetimes, to purge that out. And there's nothing that could be done that can avoid that. That in the universe itself, there is cause and effect, and God gives you free will. Like when God, the unit of consciousness, gives any soul free will, it holds that free will as long as it wants, but at some point, if you want to get rid of free will, you can give it back to God. And that's what I do. Like, I don't believe in holding free will personally. I think it's the smartest thing to do with your free will is to give it to God. And God, it's an option. I'll tell you how you do it. God says to you, hey man, I'm giving you free will. Okay, you have free will. What free will means, you have intention. You can launch intentions. And when you have free will, the intentions that you launch, according to the law of free will, means that you have the right, and then that means that whatever you do, the result of that will come back and affect you. That's what it means to have free will. And God gave that option because God wanted everyone to have that ability to be a creator like God. So everyone has that ability, and you have that. And as long as you want to maintain that, you are responsible for the outcome of your action, and God itself cannot interfere with that. Like once God gives it to you, it's yours and you have it. And no matter what you say, God cannot override that. It's your karma. Every person has their karma. And so, yeah, yeah.
I have said that, but do you explain it in that way of like karma is what created that child to be born in suffering, even if it's their child? Like, do you say that to them if
Yes.
their child?
Absolutely. That's what I would say.
And if they say back to you, okay, well, if that's the case, then how does my child who isn't of age to, go do things and do what you're saying, how do they create the karma for themselves to get out of this disease or this?
Well, the parents, that's the parents, have the karma also of having a child like that. So it's the parents' responsibility. They took on the responsibility to have a child, knowing that there's the risk. You don't know what kind of child you're going to get when you have a child. You say, I'm going to have a child. You take the risk, and you get that child. So having received that child, you do your best as the parents to help that child move forward. That's all you can do. You can help, to the best of your ability to soothe, to comfort the child, to help the child grow, and that's also your karma in, having had that, having had that child.
But when the child isn't of age to practice these things to create the karma to get
Yeah.
to that state, then the parent is responsible for holding the space for them.
The parents should teach the child, these lessons from when. Yeah, you can teach infants, like from even when they're in the womb, you can talk to them. Children are, you can know these children are, they're sharp and they have consciousness, they have everything. You can talk to them, and teach them even if they don't exactly understand the words, they still get something. So I would just talk with them. Hey man, this is how it is. Be grateful you're not worse. Like a lot of people, you can look at any kind of suffering, but you could say they're born with this and this, but at least they have this and this and that. So and everybody starts with it's like your poker hand. You're dealt a certain cards. You play with your cards you have. You arrange them to the best order you can get, and you play your hand, and that's what it is. But the smartest thing to do is to let go of free will, and I'll tell you how you get rid of free will. You have to talk to God. You have to learn how to have a conversation. Like, don't imagine that God is something that you can't talk to, or that you need some kind of interpreter to talk to God. You don't need an interpreter. You don't need a priest or a religion or any kind of Latin. God will talk to you here and now. And you should have a conversation with God all the time. Like, if you're not in unit of consciousness, you're in ego consciousness. Like, I think of God as mother, as the divine mother. So I think, Mother, help me. People, sometimes I say it out loud, if it's like, say it's going to rain and there's a wedding happening here, I say, Mama, help me, get these clouds to move around. And they happen. You can't, like, if you don't know, you can talk to God, and God can hear you, and God helps. Like, so don't dream that you're like here alone. You're not here alone. Like, you've got the unit of force on your side, and the unit of force is able to rearrange the universe, make this happen, that happen, beyond what you could imagine to make things work out. So you just, as far as those parents, I would say to those parents, look, it's a blessing. Don't think it should have happened otherwise. If only this had happened, this, that. This is this child's birth, and this is the experience this child needs. And that's why God doesn't give you an experience that's not the right experience for you. Like, God does not goof. There's not one atom in this universe that's out of place. Like, if you're truly a scientist, you know that. If one atom in this universe were moved, the entire thing would collapse. That's how perfectly aligned it is. So everything's happening at the right time, the right moment. This child is born, with this challenge. And everybody's born with some challenge. Nobody comes here scot-free. Everybody has their challenges. Life itself is a challenge. Okay.
I was listening to a talk from Hare Krishna, and you had mentioned earlier about good karma.
Yeah.
And he said that there's like good karma isn't good either. Like, you don't want any karma. Does that make
Well, that's true in a certain way. I'll tell you how that is. Here's how it is. I believe that the smartest thing to do is to put yourself in God's hands, and this is how you do it. You have a conversation with God. You say, hey man, you gave me free will, is that right? Yes, I did. Yes, you have free will. Well, I'm telling you, man, listen, I had enough of this stuff, and it's the last thing I want. So with my free will, I'm telling you what I'm going to do. Here and now, I'm giving it back to you. You gave it to me. Okay, it's mine. Okay, well, here you go. I'm giving it back to you. Now it's your problem. You take care of it. Whatever I'm supposed to think, you make me think. Whatever I'm supposed to do, you make me do. Like, you just take care of the scene, man. I've had enough of this free will, and I don't want any more. With my free will, free will you gave me, here it is. I'm giving it to you, and no backsies. You know, that, and I did that. I did that with Swamiji. That's my, like that's what the trick of the sannyasis. That's their trick, man. The sannyasis pull off this trick, and this is how the sannyasis do it. They find a guru, and they say to God, okay, God, I don't know where you are exactly, because you could be, my ego could make me think that I'm talking to you, but I'm really talking to my ego. Who knows? What's really going on here? I don't know. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to find me a guru who I have faith in. Someone who I. So I found myself a guru. I did. I had that intention to find me a guru. I found the Swami Satchidananda, and I lived in his ashram for 20 years. And I gave myself to him in the name of God. Like, instead of, I may not be able to give myself to God because I may not know how to do that. So I'll do a baby step and I'll give myself to a guru and to a spiritual mission, and I'll just be its servant. So I went for 20 years literally as a servant of this organization. Like, I worked 80 hours a week. I got room and board and $20 a month. That's it. $20 a month. I'm spending money. But I had everything I needed, and I lived quite happily. And I gave myself to the guru, and the guru would tell me, hey man, I want you to fix cars, I want you to build a lake here, build a temple. He gave me assignments, of what he wants me to do. Get up at 4:30, be meditation, hatha yoga. I followed that whole regime. The ashrams, strict, you have to check off. And then if he's not happy, he used to come up on on Saturdays we had programs with him. He'd go, oh, Dasyanandaji, I see you missed 3 meditations this week. Oh, Swaroop, you made all the meditations. That was good. And he'd embarrass you or praise you in public. The guru, to kind of shame you into following the rules. And so I did that as because I wasn't completely sure of my, direct experience with God, so I did that. But after 20 years of having this kind of intermediary guru, I decided that in my lifetime it would be good for me to try to do it on my own, have my own. And I wanted to do it while Swamiji was still alive, so he could kind of keep an eye on me, make sure I don't get crazy or anything, And I wanted to see if I could live outside of the ashram's bubble. It's like this beautiful heavenly bubble. It's easy to be in heaven when you're in heaven. You're living in this idyllic environment with these lovely people who are really, almost every one of them is a living saint. And so I, just with Swamiji's, I came out and I had this vision to, what am I going to do? I said to God, okay, man, I'm here to serve. Tell me what you want me to do. What should I do for the next 20 years? And so I, got up. What's my job here? And then you just sit and be quiet. You'll see something will dawn. That's how you do. Like my mother. I'll tell you this. When I was going to college, I was applying for different colleges. I got in everywhere because my mother helped me write my essays. For everything. And what she said to me, like, God gave you certain gifts, and with those gifts that God gave you, what is the greatest way that you can serve humanity? Like, what can you do for humanity with the gifts that God gave you that you could use in your life that would make the world better for your having lived? And that's what she said to me. So then I thought, well, I could become I had a lot of mechanical abilities. I could become an engineer. I could design electric cars that are safer and, things like that. So I thought, I'm going to become a mechanical engineer. And so I went to Berkeley and I studied mechanical engineering. And the point I have behind all of this is about being serviceful. If you have the intention with your life energy to be of service, everything will work for you. There's absolutely nothing that will not work. Everything works. It's like you have the vision is of service. If you have that vision, may I be of service to humanity. How, like Wayne Dyer used to say, how may I serve? If you have that mantra, how may I serve, with your life experience, wherever you go, you're the servant of life. Then you're aligned with God, because God is the servant of the universe. Like, I'll tell you who God is. God is the one force that never takes a vacation. God never gets a minute off, even a second off. God is there only to serve, to make sure that all the creation is being maintained beautifully. That's how God. So God is the one who serves all of creation without ever taking a day off or a moment off. God is always on duty for service. And if you align with that service, you will see that God's energy will function through you, and there's nothing else you have to do. So the trick that you have with free will, and I'm answering your question, the free will question is this. Give your free will, yeah, it's all about karma. Like if the way you get rid of karma so that you don't have good karma or bad karma is to give yourself to God. If you put yourself in God's hands, it's something like these guys who work for me, like Jeremy, he works for me. I tell him what to do every day, and I'm responsible. If he messes up, he's not responsible. I'm responsible because I told him what to do. He's like, my employee, so to speak. So I'm the one who has the karma. It's not his karma. I told him to do that. He did it. It's my karma. It's my intention that he's fulfilling. The same way, if you do that with God and you say, God's the boss, my boss, I'm just being God's servant, God's responsible then God gets the karma. It goes back to God. It doesn't come to you. So good karma or bad karma, it's not affecting you. And that's why I think it's all a question of intention. The smart thing to do is to put yourself in God's hands and let God take care of you. And let go of your ego. Like the ego is just an illusion that we use that causes nothing but suffering. And that's the truth. It's the source of suffering and separation. And the goal of life is to get rid of your ego and just to merge into unit of consciousness. And then what's left is God's ego. And God's ego is nothing other than the desire to be of service. That's God's ego, is that. That's the intention of God, is to serve. Like in the candelabra, in a Jewish menorah, there's one candle that lights all the other. It's the highest candle. You use that to light all the other candles. That candle is called the shamas, which means the servant. So if you want to be the king of the country, the way that you become the king or the queen of the country is by being willing to be the servant of the poorest person in the country. If you're willing to be the servant of every single person in the country, and that's who you are. You are the servant of every single person. If that's the job that you want to take on, then you're the king of that country. That's what it means to be the king. If you're not willing to be the servant of the servant, you should not take the position of being a ruler. And God takes the position of being the ruler of the universe because God is willing to be the servant of every one of us. And that's what's happening here. Okay, we're going to take a break. Is that okay? We're going to take a 5-minute break. Is that okay? Okay. Om Shanti. Thank you. Uh, so if you open up to I think it's the third page, and the outlet is the handout. I'll just show you the second page. We'll just talk about it, but I'm not going to go over it with you right now. Do you see the second page is the Aloha alignment? If you guys can just read that on your own, and if anybody wants to be part of our mailing list, or if anybody doesn't want to be part of our mailing list, they could let us know, because otherwise I'm just going to put everybody in the mailing list. That yoga alignment is what I believe as a team we should promote on planet Earth. Like I think if you promoted that alignment for humanity, you would find that we could create a great club for ourselves and attract really a way for planet Earth to be heavenly. It's like there's no excuse for us not to be able to have like heaven on planet Earth in our lifetime. Like we have everything we need, the internet and everything's ready to go. It's just a question of getting it to happen. Like, if we all stick together and form a nice club and get other people to be part of our club, it can happen. Okay, I'm going to sing a song for you right now, and if you want, you can sing along with me. You're really welcome to. I'm trying to, like, you know how whales, they create a song, you know, the whales, and then they change it every once in a while. But the whales have about a 9-minute long song. You could hear it, you know, if they play it. This is my whale song, and everybody should create a song. I suggest each person in your lifetime should create a song that kind of expresses what you believe. And this is what I think is the essence of unified field theory in just a few words. And then I might do one more program with you on my book on, you know, going over unified field theory. This program that we just did is more or less Ashtanga yoga. And then we'll have another one maybe next week on unified field theory. Unified field theory is just a way of looking at life in an integrated way so that you realize that science and spirituality are the same. You know, instead of having like your left and your right brain, the real logical part and the spiritual part, you know, those two have to be able to communicate with each other and feel in harmony. There shouldn't be like a discord. And I'll tell you about being atheist. People who are atheists who don't know about God, they have as much of a risk of bad health as people who've been smoking for 40 years. It's very bad for your health to be an atheist. Like people who don't know about God and who think that all of this is just chaotic nonsense and they're going to die. Those people who think like that have the average health of somebody who's been smoking for 40 years. Like being an atheist has just as much risk to your health as smoking for 40 years. And that's, so all those people who are, you know, like Richard Dawkins and all these fools, it's not a functional philosophy, because any functional philosophy should make you healthy and not unhealthy. So if you want to know about, you know, to be healthy, you should know about God and integrate with God. That's your main source. Okay, here's my take on an Aloha anthem. And if you want to join in, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I'm just going to sing it. You can, but feel free to join in if you like. I ultimately want to make, like during this time you're here, I'd love to have you all help me do like a good recording of it with a whole group of people. I'd like to get this out, like, you know, to be like a hit on YouTube. So. And Cat Stevens, like when I was growing up, doesn't Aloha look like Cat Stevens? You all know Cat Stevens, who he is? Like Cat Stevens was like my guru when I was growing up. Like there was a certain time in, like when I was at Berkeley, and before I found yoga, that I started to meditate on music, and I used to meditate on his music, and that's how I started my meditation practice on Tea for the Tillerman. Okay, so anyway, here's invoking Cat Stevens' blessing for a cool Aloha I Kapono, an Aloha anthem. Ready? I sing. No, I'm here to drink side. I have this actual trick. I have this trick that I have.
You just sounded like Cat Stevens when you started there.
What was that?
You sounded like Cat Stevens when you started.
Okay, we'll try it again. This is a piece of clothes. Here, forward. Shut my mouth. Sometimes it helps like my throat kind of open up.
Like a dry piece of clothing?
Clothes. It's just like a clothes. Piece of clothes. Just dry clothes.
Can you
It's so
swallow it?
magic stuff. I put it in my book, in my mouth, just to get my brain for it. Okay, I don't have to do with you, but depending on what you try as well. It's magic stuff, you know. It activates your brain somehow. This also, I have to say, this keyboard's a little lower than I normally have it up a little, like a couple more inches, so I have to see if I can pull this off. Okay, here we go. I invoke the blessings of my beloved gurus and the guru Cat Stevens come through me and make this voice tick. Okay, here we go. I sing for you. I give for you. I live for you. A little louder. for you. I will care for you forever in every way, forever. And the day je chante pour toi, je danse pour toi, je vis pour toi. Je suis là pour toi, je prends soin de toi, pour toujours et un jour, pour tous les jours et un jour. Forever is sustained the life of the land by righteousness. Forever is sustained the life of the land by righteousness. Ikapono. Mahaloha ilalima ma'alahi pono haoli aloha kule ana noa malohia lokahi. Gratitude, humility, respect, cooperation, honesty, happiness and love, service and freedom, peace and unity. You and I, we are one. You and I are one. Pour pouvoir soir. Tatsavetur varenyam Margo devasya di mahi Dio Yona Prachodaya Om Hrim Namah. I am a stream of love flowing forever through a field of love. There is but one unitive field of love, and that thou art. You and I, we are one. You and I are one. Tatvam asi aham brahmasmi Adonai echad. And that thou art, I am the unitive field. The Lord our God is one. You and I, we are one. You and I are one. Aloha Yahovah Allah Ke akua Yehiva Omrim Namah Hallelujah, Hallelujah. We pledge our harmony with one ecology, living in peace. Synergy, prosperity, sustainability, filled with diversity. Aloha for one and all. Om Hrim Nama, Om Hrim Nama, Om Hrim Nama. You and I, we are one. Om Hrim Nama. Om Hrim